Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Boiler Room. Thank you for joining us tonight. It is the 30th of June, 2022. I'm your host. My call sign is Hesher, and I want to thank you for joining us for this broadcast. We are live at YouTube. We are live at Rockfin. We're live at Alternate Current Radio, and we're live at Spreaker. You got all those options to find us, at least for that first hour of Boiler Room, and we're very excited to be here with you tonight. Oh my goodness. It's wonderful to see everybody out there. Thank you for joining us in the chat rooms. We have a Discord if you would like to be there for the live shows and hang out with the other chatters in the Discord. There's a link at alternatecurrentradio.com in that main hamburger menu in the upper right. So be sure and utilize that hamburger menu for all things Alternate Current Radio. That can get you just about anywhere on our website quite quickly. Quick housekeeping issues here. Number one, last week's Boiler Room is, of course, available first half on YouTube, first and second half on Rockfin. And we've been so slammed this week, we haven't had time to put it in the podcast streams yet. So apologies to all you podcast listeners out there. We'll get that up as soon as possible. It's reaching the top of the list, but not quite. We're not quite there yet. Just a lot going on, but never fear. The episode is up, like I said, at YouTube and Rockfin. Let's see what else. If I could get the extended social reject club out there, all you listeners of Boiler Room, to do me a favor. My grandpa is not feeling well, not doing well. So if there's any of you out there that are so inclined to pray or send out good vibes, send them out to Hesher's grandpa Russ. He's an amazing old dude. He's 96 years old, and he is a Army veteran of the Korean War. It's a very interesting life story. So thoughts and prayers are appreciated there for Russ, for Grandpa Russ. Let's see what else. Good music news. Just real quick. New Porcupine Tree is out. New Meshuggah has been out. So if you're a prog rock listener or a heavy metal listener, do yourself a favor and get a copy of both of those. What else? Our donation drive, the Spring Shillin' for Sanity donation drive, has come to a close, but it's mostly a ceremonial close. If anyone wants to support us, you can find out how at alternatecurrentradio.com/support. We very much appreciate those of you that chipped in during that. It was definitely helpful. We were hoping it was going to get us through the end of the year, but it was pretty modest for the most part. So it helped us get through the last 3 months, and we very much appreciate that. Let's see here. What else? Tons of news. Oh my gosh, tons of news. I don't even know how the heck we're going to cover it all, but we'll do what we can tonight. I've been subbing on TNT Radio for a few hosts for a few shows last week and this week. So if you're not familiar with TNT, Patrick Henningsen has a show over there every Tuesday and Thursday, which is really good. The Patrick Henningsen Show. You may have heard me on that a couple times. You may have heard Ruckus. You may have heard Miles of Truth, Daniel Spalding, Basil Valentine. A lot of familiar names coming and going from the Patrick Henningsen Show over there. And I guest hosted that for him last Thursday. Had a great time. I also guest hosted the Germ Warfare podcast over there at TNT. Big shout out to Germ. That is a great podcast, by the way. Highly recommend it. If you're not listening to Germ Warfare, you might be missing out. And the Shannon Joy Show. Also, I've been sitting in on the Shannon Joy Show this week and one day last week. And boy, we've covered a lot of ground on all those. So a lot of TNT action since we were with you last week on the Boiler Room. And one more thing. I have a show starting over there this Saturday. So TNT is audio podcasting, and it happens live. It happens on a strict clock. There's no showing up tardy like I do for Boiler Room. So it's been a fun challenge. I appreciate them giving me the opportunity. And the Brian McLean Show, a.k.a. Hesher, will be starting on Saturday at 9 a.m. Central Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And if you're in a different time, I guess that would be 7 a.m. Pacific Time. And if you're in other time zones, well, do the math. Don't make me do math while I'm live. No one likes that. Okay. So I hope to see everybody at tntradio.live. That is the website. You can go on over there and check it out if you want to hear the archives of any of the guest host slots that I've done over the last couple of weeks here. I was joined by Odd Man Out on one of those. I was joined by Ruckus on one of those. So there's plenty of stuff for you to go catch up on if you are so inclined to check out TNT. Thank you, Creative Accidents. Thank you, Conrad. Definitely. Really appreciate you guys. Okay, let's see here. Let's get into it. It's time to do some boiler room. So let's introduce the group here. Boom, there it is. Green room is unleashed, and there we all are. So let's welcome back to the program for the first time in a few weeks here, the Wandering Wolf, Mr. Corey Drayton. Welcome back to the boiler room. How are you?
Hey, Hesher, and to everyone else out there tonight. Hope everyone is having a great day, great night, whenever you happen to be listening to this. I'm doing well myself. It's good to be back with all of you. So really looking forward to seeing what we unpack tonight.
Oh yeah, it should be interesting, man. It should be an interesting night. There's more than enough to talk about out there. So yeah, looking forward to getting into it with you. All right, let's welcome the man behind the Daily Ruckus up next. Ruckus, among us, what is going on? Welcome back to the boiler room.
Hey, feels like not that long ago since last we spoke. So
Yeah.
what does that tell you? Although you got to sink your teeth into doing that daily thing, and you thought doing it once a week was pretty bad, huh? How do you like?
Oh man.
How you like digging through that every day, my friend?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's taken some getting used to. I am like I don't know, it's kind of nice. I work well under pressure. I guess I could say that. So when I know that, I've got a live show, it starts at a certain time, it breaks at a certain time. I'm getting better at getting my ducks all lined up beforehand, So this is good practice for me, slightly different formats and all that stuff. But yeah, it's been I was telling Spore earlier, man, like I've spent way too much time in the news streams this week, but it's been a mixed bag this week. At least there's some good news going on. At least even if it is to distract us from the bad news, there's some things to celebrate out there this week, man. But hey, it's great to have you back on the show, dude.
Thank you, thank you. I'm looking forward to your new show over there. Lots of good stuff coming from TNT Radio, and then also hopefully I'll follow in your footsteps and get back to doing the. Oops, which one is it? This one, the daily thing.
Yeah.
We'll see. Hopefully I got something new coming out for you guys tomorrow. So.
All right. Looking forward to it, man. And been enjoying the re-airs of the recent episodes. Sometimes I'm multitasking when I'm listening to the show. So if I have to re-air them, it's always good by me because sometimes I miss stuff. The last one was really good. It was kind of like your last open mic night was great. It was sort of like a dark origins of internet propaganda and people data gathering and stuff like that. It was, good one. What was the remind me the name of the guy that you were channeling there?
99% sure it's Dustin Broadberry.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, that one's definitely going down in one of my top 10 favorite episodes.
Yeah, me too. It's right up there with the Jeffrey Smith and a couple others. All right. Daily Ruckus, everybody, check it out. And also big shout outs to Mindspace Art of the Soul Purpose podcast. Mindspace, if you're out there listening, we really appreciate you and everything that you put in. So be sure and make sure that you are subscribed to the Soul Purpose podcast, everybody, and West Lexicon Media for all things Mindspace Art. And
and I should point out while you're bringing that up that I'm actually the featured guest on tomorrow's premiere of the new episode of Soul Purpose. So for good or for bad, that's what's going on tomorrow on his show.
Right. Thanks for reminding me. Yes, we're looking forward to a Ruckus Among the Soul Purpose tomorrow, which will premiere at 8 p.m. on alternatecurrentradio.com. So come on down to the website, hit that hamburger menu, and click the listen live button. And we'll look forward to chatting with everybody while that show premieres. Also, shout out to the Oddcast. Odd Man Out's not with us tonight, but he's got a new episode out, and it's the beginning of a series, I think, a multi-part series. You can find that on our Spreaker page and probably on our webpage. If it's not there yet, it'll be there soon. what else? Mystical American Patriot Society, of course. A new episode of that went up on Tuesday night, I believe, and it was a banger per usual. And okay, yeah, Sunday Wire, of course, UK Column, all the things we do over here. Find it all on the webpage. All right, I think it's time to introduce the one and only, the very lovely curator of all things Whiskey Tango Foxtrot on the interwebs. Lovely Spore, how you doing? Welcome to the Boiler Room.
Thank you. I am excellent and very happy to be here.
Well, we're very happy to have you, and very curious to hear what the today's icebreaker is. What kind of internet oddity have you found for us?
Well, there's so many out there. Thanks for all the submissions, everyone. There's so much weird stuff going on these days. But this is one of those ones that just popped up as we were grabbing some food tonight, and I had to go with it. So the title is Another Giant African Snail Sighting Forces Florida County into Quarantine.
Giant snail, huh?
Yeah, the reappearance of the invasive snail species forced state officials to enact a quarantine order last week for residents of Florida's county, or Pasco County, an area north of Tampa along the coast, the Gulf Coast. Apparently, this snail is destructive and breeds very, very, very quickly, and it can ruin paint and stucco and vegetation. So apparently nobody could leave their house because of this giant snail, which is not native to the Florida land. It comes from Africa. But yeah, everybody stay at home. There's snails on the loose.
I've never heard of this before. I don't know if I should clown it and laugh at it, or I don't know. I'm not really sure how to feel about it. My gut reaction is to say, what the actual hell's going on here? Are people actually staying home for fear of this African giant snail? I mean, I will admit I am a little bit shocked at its form factor there. That is a big mamma jamma.
I think it grows up to like 8 inches long or something like that.
Ugh. I don't like it. I will say I don't like it. When I first heard the headline Spore, I was like, you know what? I used to live in Humboldt County, man. We used to walk around with banana slugs and stuff, like
on your tongues.
Big ass banana slugs. Yeah, I had this one friend, we'll shout him out. I don't know where the hell he is. I haven't heard from him in decades, but I had this friend up there. His name was Phil Duty. That's right, Phil Duty. And that's not with a U, it's with 2 O's. And one day we were all sitting around the redwood tree, probably indulging in something psychoactive. I don't really remember what we were doing, but I remember being in this giant redwood forest, and Phil, he grabbed the biggest banana slug he could find, and he just popped the whole thing in his mouth and ate it in front of us. And me and 3 of my friends were just like jaws agape. We couldn't believe it. Never seen anything like that before. But ever since that experience, Spore, I've never really been that afraid of slugs. For some reason, slugs, snails, they don't bother me that much. I think banana slugs are majestic and interesting, but they don't eat your house. They don't eat your house. So if this thing can eat stucco and metal and breed by the thousands, I can see why it's a big deal. But and they can damage you. I read in the article they can hurt your hand. Like you'll see the person in the image here has got latex gloves on and whatnot. But oh boy, can lay thousands of eggs at a time and grow to be 8 inches. Invasive species. I mean, I do recognize the gravity of this, especially living here in Texas where we have this insane hog problem. By the way,
we're not like quarantined for it, I mean, it's like what, like I don't know. I personally, I find snails pretty creepy, as well as slugs and worms, and especially snails with their weird trails that like have a metallic glow in the sunlight. But like to be told I can't leave my home because there might be a snail outside just seems a little bit drastic.
Yeah. That's I have a hard time believing that part. I scanned the article, Spore, and I wish they would talk a little bit more about how the Floridians are responding to that.
Yeah, there's very few details, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if
So
these were okay, so say you are one of these people that has a house and your exterior is made out of stucco and has paint on it, and you need to make sure it's protected. When you want to be allowed to go outside and see if there's any of these destructive snails about?
good question. I'd be out there with my 22 or something like that, taking care of any of these little suckers. I wouldn't be locked inside hiding from them
Go
for
out with like a
fear.
bucket of salt.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You'd have to have like a large thing of road salt to get one of these guys. Oh, that would be gross. That would be for
Right,
anyone that's ever
really
done
gross.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you've ever seen that happen to a small snail, I can only imagine how like hideous that would be with something that big. Like that's really creepy. But all right. Well, Wandering Wolf, what do you think, man? Our Floridians, maybe some of our Floridian Social Reject Club members out there will let us know. But what is this, man? Have you ever heard of this before? Should people stay inside over snails?
I've never heard of anything like this before. I mean, certainly, in the past, anytime there's been some kind of invasion of creatures, it's always the Africanized creature, the sort of alien Africanized honeybees, but never snails. And my first thought is it some kind of racing snail, like never-ending story style, where we have to run screaming in terror from it? Because certainly the snail is only a threat to you personally if it can catch you, which might take it a few weeks to cross the street and become an actual direct threat to your person. Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how this plays out. Will there be an influx of French tourism to Florida, looking for the biggest escargot they can possibly find in the wild? But really, all joking aside, is locking down going to be the default response to every crisis now?
Really?
That is the question, my friend. That is the question. Is this really something people should lock down for? Is this neurolinguistic programming to get everybody used to locking down for this and that? I mean, before it was allegedly a pandemic, right? We were supposedly all under threat, although that didn't quite turn out to be the case. But nonetheless, I don't know. I don't know. This seems like so low grade compared to something like that. Ruckus, what do you think? Is this just conditioning people to get used to locking down? I mean, what's next? Is it going to be the bees? We've had Africanized bees show up all the time. I've never seen them order a lockdown for that.
I'm not familiar with the specifics of what they're calling a quarantine, and did it mention all that over these snails? Because
Oh,
No details about
of
that.
course, so it was just one of these headline things, right?
Yeah.
Clickbait.
seems like it.
All right, well, there's that, but I don't even want to fill in the gaps there with my imagination because it makes zero sense. Because if the snails are going to eat your home, it literally said it's hazardous to infrastructure. I was like, okay, what good is locking yourself inside going to do? They're just going to eat the inside out or something. I just think, and somebody just thank you. I was just thinking about this. They just dropped this in the Discord chat. There's another invasion of like these giant Mormon crickets or something, right? So I think that the timing of these massive invasions of all of these bugs, I find very interesting at a time when we're about to experience probably the worst food shortage the world has ever seen very soon. And I suspect that maybe it might be one of these, kill two birds with one stone kind of things. I don't know. I think Wandering Wolf was onto something about the French. You can make a business out of this. If somebody can go hunt and round up all those snails that, there's people who do like to eat that nasty crap. I don't know who, no offense to anyone who does, but I prefer not to. Thank you very much. But wow, this is wild. But yeah, what strange timing with all of this invasive species. Now, all conspiracy theories aside, what if this is a direct result of them, them messing around with everything and us being indoors for so long because of the shutdowns over the pandemic?
Well, apparently you need a permit to own one of these snails, and they've been imported from other countries illegally. So there's some non-law abiding citizens that have brought upon this problem to an entire county.
And it's because they can lay thousands of eggs that it's become such a huge problem so quickly. It's like gremlins. This is crazy. Yeah, this is wild.
Yeah, pretty much. If you look a little further down in the article, and this might be noteworthy to anyone that's planning to try to eat one, they also present serious health risks to humans as they carry a parasite called, get ready for this. This sounds like another one of those zootopic sort of scares. Rat lungworm.
Oh God.
They carry a parasite called a rat lungworm that can cause meningitis. And they say people have to wear protective gear like gloves when handling them. So I don't know how that works out. And the other thing is they've already officially eradicated this species in Florida twice, I guess. And officials are saying that the last one found in that area alive was in 2017. So it's actually been 5 years since anyone has seen one of these. So I don't know. Maybe it's like we got a little mini horror movie happening here, kind of like the Blob or something like that. Snail, slug. I don't know. Wandering Wolf, do you think the French will want to travel here and eat it, knowing that they could get rat lungworm? That doesn't sound good. It sounds a lot less appetizing now.
Yeah, doesn't it? I think they would be far more prudent than that. They probably would give it a miss. But I'm certainly, sure that someone local to Florida will give it a go.
Oh yeah, Florida man, right? You never know what's going to happen when the Florida man gets into the picture.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know what else to say about that other than I find it really weird. And if this really is like clickbait to normalize this whole concept of locking down for this and that, doesn't make sense. Why are you going to stay inside? Why not just tell everybody, hey, don't touch these things, or call us, call this number, call 1-800 giant snail collector from the government, whatever. But no, they're going to tell people to stay inside. I have a hard time believing anyone's doing that. I mean, people in what county was that for? It was like Pasco. Yeah, Pasco County.
Yeah.
People of social rejects of Pasco County, let us know. Send us an email. Wandering Wolf at alternatecurrentradio.com, Hesher at alternatecurrentradio.com, Spore or Ruckus at alternatecurrentradio.com. We want to know if you're locked in your house, if you're forced locked into your house. And also if our Pfizer listeners out there, those representatives from that evil entity, want to let us know if they're working on an mRNA biotechnology shot to protect people from giant African snails, we would be interested to know that.
Well, I have one more thing to say.
Yeah, what do you got, Spore?
Well, okay, so out here in Texas, we have all sorts of weird things, right? We have spiders, we have wasps, hornets, whatever you want to call them, stinging mean things that have even hurt our dogs. And I mean, our people in our neighborhood, like
fire ants.
Yeah, fire ants. Yeah, all sorts of things. And people in our neighborhood are like they post like whatever they find on their back porch or whatever. And they about like maybe 6 to 8 months ago, they posted this thing called a flatworm, and it was like this really long worm that was flat. And apparently it can kill your dog if your dog touches it or licks it or whatever. But there was no alarm in the town or anything like that. Like, don't let your kids, I mean, because if it could kill your dog, it's probably not good for your kids to lick it either. It's like, or anyone to be around this poisonous worm. But there was no like alarms going off or anything like that for that thing.
Oh, we didn't get a flatworm quarantine? Yeah,
No.
I know. Not even for the pups. They didn't even say quarantine your animals.
They don't care about us,
Guess not. They really don't care. We didn't get a quarantine for this one. That would have made an interesting quarantine series in the boiler room, but hey. All right. Anyone else on the giant worm?
I think you might be portending a little bit of an ominous possibility when you're talking about like the science fiction horror movie scenario, because a lot of those things, especially some of those sci-fi movies back in the day, like the 50s and whatnot, it's always about these insects or giant mutated creatures. All things considered, I think, isn't it poetic justice in this clown world if maybe these giant slugs or something like it in the near future were to, like, I don't know, get their hands on a bunch of the juice from the jibby jabs, and something happens and they do mutate. And I mean, it's Attack of the Killer Slugs, and it's like, run. You don't have to run. Just walk away. I mean, they don't move that fast, but it's really kind of silly that it'd be these slow moving, slimy slug snails. How stupid.
I could just see the script being written right now, Ruckus. Now that you said it, someone's working on that script. mRNA modified pest slugs grow from 8 inches to 800 inches or something like that. I mean, Wandering Wolf, how do we protect Ruckus's idea here? I'm sure some psychopath out there is trying to steal it right now and write a script.
Well, I happen to be on the phone with my intellectual property lawyer today, so get your one sheet written and register it with the WGA. That's a good place to start. Ruckus is actually onto something, because if you think about all of those B movies in the 50s with the giant creatures, it was always radioactivity. It was man's hubris through science that made those creatures so dangerous and such a threat. I was thinking about when Ruckus was describing it, Tarantula. This is a film about, really an arachnid that is really harmless, that people keep as pets, yet they managed to make that thing so menacing and terrifying that it took a young Clint Eastwood in his first appearance ever on screen, flying an F-86 Sabre to kill it. So a little bit of movie trivia there.
Oh man, that's great. That's absolutely fantastic.
Oh, it reminds me of like Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, like something that could literally not hurt you whatsoever.
There you go. Yeah, like something out of a trauma film or something like that. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. I use a lot of Toxic Avenger metaphors when I'm on air, so this falls right in line with all that stuff. It's very 12 Monkeys. Also, there's definitely a 12 Monkeys factor here. If we could just get some time travel involved, I'm sure we could get that on the one sheet. All right. Well, watch out for giant African land snails, everybody. Apparently, they're very fast, very dangerous, and you might get meningitis if you play with it, eat it. I don't know. I really don't know. All right. Well, anyone else on that? Going once, going twice. Boom. Icebreaker complete. Wandering Wolf, were you about to jump in there? Okay. All right.
Nope. All good.
All right. So let's see here. Does anybody have a hot topic burning a hole in their pocket that they want to throw into the boiler room tonight? Not to put everybody on the spot, but if you do, I want to hear about it. Oh, Spore does.
Oh, okay. I want to. I've been like out of the news, so I just want to hear what people are talking about, or what you all know about 50-something people coming over the border and dying in a truck.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can hook you up a little bit on that one. So we are experiencing a massive wave coming across the southern border right now from Central and South America. I think it was a caravan of, gosh, it's been a couple of weeks since I saw it, but I think it was 15,000 migrants looking to come across the border. And apparently we just have an open border. It is, they just let everybody walk through. They're projecting it's going to be like between 6 and 8 million people at some point. I think we've already gone well over 1 million, maybe even 2 million. So people are just coming over in droves. They're getting buses, they're getting paperwork, they're getting financial aid in many cases. They're getting sent, to this and that city. It's pretty staggering to see. All the while, we've got Abbott down there and DPS and Border Patrol doing their whatever that operation is. I'm blanking on the name of it right now, but all this stuff happening, and they want to play, power politic with it for the most part, but it's still happening, and it's dangerous. It's really inhumane and dangerous. It's, they tell us we need to have an open border because these people want to come here and have a chance. Well, that's pretty interesting because we've now seen the 34th district in South Texas down here flip from blue to red. And we have a new congresswoman who has been elected to represent the 34th district. And it was an emergency session, so she's going to have to rerun in November. But yeah, she won that by a landslide. And she campaigned on tighter borders, which is interesting, and human rights, and combine the idea of human rights and tighter borders and improving legal with an L immigration, those processes. So I think it's very noteworthy that that happened. First of all, that says a lot. The support among the Hispanic community in this country for Biden is down to 34%, which is abysmally low. So, there may be a shift. There is a visible shift, actually, from blue to red happening in the Hispanic community and all over the country. Actually, last week I heard there was 1 million new voters or voters that switched from Democrat to Republican. So the policies of this administration are quite literally changing people's minds. They've gone full madmen in so many regards. But anyways, back to what Spore asked. Yeah, there was a major tragedy that happened. 54 people. Originally, they said 48, and then it was 50. Now it's 54. Last I heard today, found dead in the back of a semi truck. All illegal immigrants. I don't even know why we call them illegal immigrants if they're just letting them walk over. But whatever language. Who cares? It doesn't make sense in an Orwellian world, anyways. But yeah, it sounded really tragic. 54 people died in the heat in the back of an 18-wheeler. 2 people have been arrested for it. Are those coyotes? I don't even know if that's a coyote. If you've already come over the border and then you pack into an 18-wheeler, I don't know if you're dealing with a coyote or not. But whoever these guys are, they tried to hide themselves too. At least one of them did. The driver, I'm told, was hiding amongst the survivors, trying to pass himself off as someone that was in the truck. So he's been arrested. Someone else has been arrested. And that's that. But that just goes to show how dangerous this is. They say, oh, we're going to have open, porous border so that these people can come here for a better life. Well, how is that a better life when you're put in all these death-defying situations to make the journey? People are getting sex trafficked and raped, and we've got cartels running around in northern Mexico and in southern Texas. This whole business of coyotes, facilitating people's crossings and stuff. This is a great example of how dangerous that is. So yeah, this whole concept of, it's, these people are coming here for a better life and we're just going to open it up. Why is that safe? How is that any, what I mean? There's so many kids that are trafficked because of these policies. And now we just have a massive spike in the actual death toll because of these policies. And we're going to keep doing this for another 6 million people. At what point do we look at the percentage of people who have died, who have been raped, who have, been sex trafficked, whatever, turned up missing, and start doing some actual philanthropy in our, political philosophy on this one. I don't know. The whole thing is extremely disturbing, Wandering Wolf, and I think it says a lot that we have a Mexican-born congresswoman that just flipped her entire district in a landslide vote, who ran on stricter border policies and improving immigration policies. That to me is, if we're going to look at it in a power politic lens, that to me is actual caring about people and caring about your country at the same time.
Yeah, exactly right. It's interesting because I think a lot of people would look at this and say, okay, well, we want to be compassionate. We want to do the compassionate thing. Is it compassionate to completely remove all restrictions and kind of metastasize the incentive for people to do something that's incredibly dangerous? I don't think that's particularly compassionate at all. I think the most compassionate thing to do is to not create a situation where we're incentivizing people to take those kinds of risks. Whatever you subsidize, you get more of. Whatever you tax diminishes, typically. So I don't know all of the details of this particular incident just because I was not paying attention to the news that much this last week. I saw one image, from overhead looking down at this vehicle. It was an 18-wheeler, I believe, and the thought that occurred to me was curated tragedy for public consumption, because whether this is something that actually happened or not, the perception is this is happening all the time. This is happening every day. And so you end up in a situation where it is a perpetual tragedy that's always occurring. Something must be done. And when you get people to this consensus of something must be done, they'll accept anything that seems like a viable solution. And unfortunately, we have people in positions of power now who are so hubristic and so irresponsible and so brain dead and so woke that they will force what appears to be a solution to a problem if it appears to optically support their foregone conclusions about what the problem actually is and how things should be handled. And I just think it's all around gross and disgusting. I found myself the other day, was kind of going through some old storage boxes, and I found a July 1990 issue of Heavy Metal magazine. And I sat down and I started reading it. And there's an entire story in there that predicts exactly what's going on right now regarding border politics and the wall. And it features Donald Trump. And so I was thinking to myself, how much of what we're seeing now was, engendered back then? The seeds were sown a long time ago. And there's so much theater that's being created around this. It's difficult to know what is fact and what is fiction.
Wow. Yeah. I wish I could say I was surprised to hear that, but I took all predictive programming of Trumpism off of the WTF list when I found that book about Baron Trump and his time traveling adventures from the 1930s or whatever that was. Who knows what's going on there? But yeah, good shout out to Heavy Metal magazine there. Wow, that's a classic in your hands right there. And what a surprise to peel it open and find that piece of predictive programming in there. You're right. This has all been it's been coming for a long time. No one's surprised to see it, I think. But it sure seems wrong. You make a really good point there about all the confirmation bias and the neurolinguistic programming and the problem reaction solution sort of paradigm that gets set up there. Ruckus, what do you think, man? Here's another one for you, Ruckus. Actually, before you respond, I saw another video today. This one was disturbing. I don't recommend anyone watch this one, quite frankly, but it was a police action or one of those channels where they were showing two cops who had stopped a truck or a van or something like that, and they were speaking with the driver, and all of a sudden, one of the illegal immigrants inside the truck bailed out the back of the truck and tried to cross the highway. And this is it's hard to even say this because it just brings back the picture in my mind. But he ran across the highway like he was the road runner or something and got smacked. I mean, he got hit by a car going highway speeds. We're talking, in this state could have been 70, 80 miles an hour, tossed like a rag doll. And I was just like, oh my, because I had just watched, something on the 54 dead people in the truck. And I was like, man, I hope this doesn't become a trend. And then of course the YouTube algorithm serves that one up to me. And I watched, this guy just get completely crushed by a high speed car. So I don't know, man. I'm with with Myra, the new 34th district congresswoman there. We need better legal immigration and stop this madness, because it's just so dangerous, man. You see so many examples of it now.
That's pretty sad.
Yeah.
What on earth are they so afraid of that they would do that? Because it's more than just being sent back to the other side. You know, there must be something not cool about being picked up by the ICE or the border patrol, or being penned up in cages with no food and water. Sometimes, you know, I heard some terrible conditions about those places, but who knows how much of that is real. But I don't know. I'm just confused about the whole message in general. So whoever's trying to throw propaganda at me, it ain't working, because I'm totally lost. I'm very confused. I really thought that these types of incidences were used to to encourage them to have, you know, wide open, you know, borders, or whatever that means. Because, like, this is like they're hiding in the back of a truck. This guy took off across the freeway. They're doing this because it's illegal. It's not because they crossed there because there were wide open borders and somebody said, "Hey, come on in, buddy." That's why I'm confused about that part of the argument. I'm not trying to play devil's advocate or anything. I just, you know, the whole thing is murkier. And then but I see both sides. They can use the arguments one way or the other. So that just tells me a lot right there, that it's a politicized issue. It's another wedge thing. It's division. It's that time of the year, I guess. We're getting right up there to this politics. Wandering Wolf is talking about Trump. I just heard some whispers already all over the interwebs that Hillary Clinton might be running again. I'm just like, what the F is going on? It just seems like a lot of political stuff happening lately, including with these massively pro-conservative yay decisions from the Supreme Court that are making the other side go like absolutely AWOL, ballistic. You know what I mean? Like crazy. So I'm like, well, here we go again. You know?
Yeah, that's a good point, you know. And that's the problem with all three of the stories we've talked about tonight so far. We're not given the pertinent details. Everything is clear as mud. So we might have one of the big the big W's, right? Who, what, when, where. We might have little pieces of each of those, maybe, but we're not given the full context. There's so much context left out, and that makes it clear as mud. And that means that both sides of the power politic factions in the mass media cartel can put their spin on it. So, how convenient for the mass media cartel? How convenient for anyone that stands to benefit from this? How convenient? Because if we had an actual fourth estate, if we had an actual media, we would have that. We would have the who, what, when, where, why, and how, you know? And then we could all make up our own minds about it and understand what the extenuating circumstances were, understand the context of it. But instead, they make it clear as mud, and both sides can put their little spins on it. And we just walk away with a whole bunch of confirmation bias, basically, depending on what our own, political identity or thought is, or or like we're doing here. We're basically forced to like war game these things out. It's like, well, could mean this, could mean that. These guys are going to look at it this way. These guys are going to look at it that way. It just makes for it makes our job harder, doesn't it, Corey? It makes our jobs a lot harder, because if we had all that, who, what, when, where, why, how, we could have an actual discussion about it that's properly in context. But they don't give that to us, so that if we take it the wrong way, if we war game it in the wrong direction, well, we're disinformation people. Well, no, we're not. We wouldn't have to fill in the blanks if the media was an actual media.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it really speaks to the idea that the thing that is the most threatening to all of the managed dialectics within dialectics that are operating, that we're always commenting on, the biggest threat to those dialectics is context. Because when you have context, you can actually have a nuanced discussion about things that are occurring in the world, and you can engage in sense making and meaning making. Now, if you remove context entirely, all people are left with are dialectics, the A and the B, the binary choices between two diametrically opposed positions. And then I think, furthermore, we've kind of drifted so far away from the Enlightenment idea of first principles. There used to be a set of governing principles philosophically that people could agree on, and every single decision that was made, or every single law that was put on the books, had to stem from those philosophical first principles. That's all gone now. So it is entirely this matrix of dialectics and subjectivism that is, I think, intentionally sown, and the removal of all context is like taking nutrients out of the soil, and allowing a garden of, frankly, bullshit to thrive.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're hurting, and that's why we do what we do. It's a big part of the reasons why we do what we do. Because if no one else is going to try to make sense of this, with at least some semblance of understanding what their own political biases are, and at least searching for some shred of objective or assumed reality or context in these things, we're just going to be following the bouncing ball. And that's not to say everyone's lying to us. We still get real stories, but we don't get the full context, and we get the power political spin no matter what. It's very hard to avoid. And Ruckus made a good point there about everything going on at the Supreme Court over the last couple of weeks. And I understand the excitement, because there's a lot of good stuff happening. But I also feel like, to Ruckus's point, we can be excited about the good things that are happening, but at the same time, those good things, they might be being amplified and timed in a way where we're not seeing, you know what I mean? The media may be telling us, oh, they did Roe v. Wade. They did the concealed carry decision there. That was the New York Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin in New York, which is going to open up people's ability to carry firearms again, and maybe across the nation. These are big deals. They overturned, they tossed back to the circuit courts the Maryland assault weapon ban. They've overturned and tossed back to circuit courts the high capacity magazine stuff. The ATF is looking to put out some new definitions and new rules. They're going to take everybody's AR pistols and classify them as NFA items that need to be taxed and put on a registry. And that is now in extreme jeopardy. Firearms Policy Coalition is probably going to take that ruling, or that change in policy and definition, all the way to the Supreme Court. If it takes as long as the New York Rifle and Pistol Association did, it may be a couple of years that we're watching it and waiting for it. But ultimately, the 2A rulings that have come down over the last week or so have been big wins. But at the same time, like I was talking about on the Shannon Joy show today, we've got a fuel thing happening that is bigger than we all think, unless you're really looking deep at it and understanding that this whole idea of how the diesel fuel is working out is potentially catastrophic in the near term. And I broke this down on the Shannon Joy show pretty well, but to sum it up, what it comes down to, this BlackRock, it comes down to BlackRock, the one of the ultimate purveyors of the consolidation of wealth, the theft of wealth and pursuit of happiness from so many of us. And this could very well lead to massive food shortages and other losses of infrastructure. And it seems to be by design. It completely seems to be by design. The only excuse they have for us is Putin. Putin did it. And we know that's not true. That is easy to resolve as a lie from the politicians and the media. So, and that's just one example. That's one example. Another thing that's happening is the Jeffrey Epstein's madam, Ghislaine Maxwell, just received her sentence. We've still never seen a real picture of her. I've never seen a real mugshot of her. We get drawings. We got to sit and watch every little detail about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. But here we have the largest sex trafficker in history, perhaps connected to some of the biggest names in Hollywood politics and business ever. And they're sending her up the river supposedly for 30 years. They say she's on suicide watch, but they don't want to tell us that Julian Assange is on suicide watch. So we're not getting much news about Assange. We're not getting anything solid about Ghislaine. We're not getting anything solid about the client list. And it's like well known. It's very well known who was on the flight logs, who the clients probably are, and nothing. Absolutely nothing. And they've already removed 2 years from that 30 years because, well, time served. So she's down to 28 years. And there are rumors floating around that she's going to be sent back to the UK for her imprisonment. And that seems pretty strange considering the amount of American politicians, business people, Hollywood people, musicians, et cetera, presidents, princes who were hanging with that guy. Oh, let's not forget Bill Gates either. Jeffrey Epstein, one of Bill Gates's good friends. So, some of the SCOTUS stuff is really encouraging. It's good pro 2A stuff. There are going to be good things that come of it if our society doesn't collapse, if these things aren't just being passed, because who cares? Or I hear one of the justices is going to retire after the break. Maybe they're going to try to pack the court after that. They're going to say they're going to try to stop the filibuster and codify Roe v. Wade in defiance of the Supreme Court. So I don't know. Nothing is wholly good at this point because there's so many crazy things going on. Wondering, Wolf, did I miss anything there? I'm sure I must have missed a couple of other slow motion travesties that are about to happen or happening behind our noses.
I can't think of anything off the top of my head that you missed, Hesher, but throughout your whole roundup there, I kept thinking about that movie Swordfish from John Travolta about 20 years ago, talking about Harry Houdini and misdirection.
Yeah.
Again, it's just anytime I see something that's promising and encouraging in the news, I say, oh, okay, that's nice. I wonder what I'm not seeing. I wonder what the bait and switch is. Shakespeare's reference to a smile and a knife always comes to mind. So really, I think the salient point is, what are we not seeing?
Right. One thing we always ask is, why are we being shown this, and why are we being shown this right now? And those two questions, they always kind of lead back to that. Like, what are we missing? What's with the timeline? This kind of stuff. I can't admit to being someone that follows the Supreme Court, very closely each year. But this year it's been like, wow, all these things, bam, bam, bam. There's also the EPA story. I mean, there again, ostensibly a big win, perhaps limiting the power of the EPA. I mean, that's ultimately the agency that told our state to turn off the power grid a year ago, February, that left over, I think, was it 4 million people? I don't remember. It was a ton of us here in Texas that had no power for up to a week. Over 100 people died during that, and it wasn't because the machines all had a core reaction. It wasn't this Hollywood thing where it was like a core reaction thing and this thing exploded and this thing over. No, they shut it down. They flipped the switch, which they're starting to do often in many places. So, and it wasn't, they say, oh, your turbines were frozen. Well, maybe they were frozen, but we had plenty of coal power, that could have been used. but there's this green line, and the EPA is the one that sets that green line. And, oh, you're going over that green line there. Carbon emissions wouldn't be good. Shut it down. Shut it down. We don't care if there's senior citizens who are freezing in their home or overheating in their home, depending on, what location, what time of year. So that's another one. That's another one. I don't know. What do you think, Ruckus?
I don't know. I think between the illegal invasion of snails and the illegal alien invasion from the border, I think we're all headed for a world of some sort of trouble here. I don't know. It's a world that I'm so tired of the clown world, Hesher.
Yeah.
It's just now we got slugs. We got the same old talking points, like okay, like the immigration thing. That's Edgar pointed out in the YouTube chat, and I appreciate that because things are a little bit different, but it's always been an issue, right? But now we've got like the cartels running the country there, so it's like these people would be willing to risk their lives to come over here. It's so bad there, but unfortunately, they don't realize that it's getting to be just as bad here too. And I was thinking about some of these age-old arguments that I used to hear when I was younger, when I didn't quite understand politics or anything like that. But one of the biggest things about the illegal immigration is, they're going to steal our jobs. And they always wind up working jobs that, the other folks don't really want to work anyways, number one. And number two, people are so concerned about their hard-earned money going towards, because then they would take the money back or send it back home to another country. Well, obviously we have no problem with throwing all of this money to Ukraine for God knows what. That's very odd, don't you think? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. What was it? I heard that Zelensky now wants $5 billion a month moving forward.
what is he? He's now a subscription as a service model. Is that what he's doing?
I don't know. That's a great question. Like, how does that work? How do you get to be this this comical dictator type guy masquerading as the bastion for freedom? By the way, it's really funny if you look at the mainstream media reports on Ukraine from just like 3 years ago and compare them to today. They're like night and day. They used to admit, yeah, they've got this Azov Nazi problem and all this stuff, but nowadays it's just like, oh, this is the model for democracy and freedom. So we got to keep sending them money, keep sending them money. So yeah, $5 billion a month. That's quite an ask. And how long might that go on? Well, let's ask him. I think someone asked Biden this just recently at the NATO summit here. Let's see if we can tune in and see what Biden said.
The G7 allies introduced a plan for an oil price cap for Russian exports, which is not yet filled out, and obviously is a response to the high price of gasoline in the United States and around the world. Are you confident that that cap would bring down prices for American drivers? And how long is it fair to expect American drivers to continue to pay a premium because of this war?
Let me hear this. The second part of the question was, would it bring down the price?
Will it bring down prices? And the war has pushed prices up. They could go as high as $200 a barrel, some analysts think. How long is it fair to expect American drivers and drivers around the world to pay that premium for this war?
As long as it takes. So Russia cannot, in fact, defeat Ukraine and move beyond Ukraine. This is
as long as it takes. As long as it takes. That's how long we're going to be going down this path, apparently. So we've got Zelensky asking for $5 billion a month while we're paying $10 a gallon for gas. We're being told the trucking industry might collapse, and we've got hyperinflation happening. We've got the rental moratoriums the eviction moratoriums about to end, and hundreds of thousands of people on the verge of having to find jobs. I mean, getting kicked out of their homes. So but they're going to do this as long as it takes. And does it seem like we're de-escalating at all? I'm not really feeling the de-escalation vibe here because we're talking about Finland and Sweden joining NATO. We're talking about setting up a permanent U.S. military base in Poland. I don't know. It does, and the war is going terribly, from what I hear, for the Ukrainians. Massive losses, loss of morale, even talk of Zelensky getting ousted. So I don't know. It sure seems like this could go on for an extended amount of time. Wondering, well, what is that world like? What is the world like in a year and a half? When we have a new base in Poland and Sweden and Finland have joined in on the encircling of Russia, and we're sending $5 billion a month over there. $5 billion worth of what? Cash and arms, I guess. I mean, how is this a good trajectory for the people that actually live here? Are they going to keep supporting this, on the, just because the media tells them to, or are Americans going to get wise that this is a not good thing?
Yeah, the trajectory certainly is grim if people just lie down and take it, if they remain complacent, if they refuse to point out, the obvious malfeasance of the people behind what's going on. I mean, you have to ask yourself, okay, what is the principal difference between a voluntary investment and extortion? Typically, extortion involves the use of force and doesn't contain a return on your investment. So really, why, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe people are saying this, but why aren't people saying to the powers that be, okay, if we are going to allow taxpayer dollars and American wealth to go to Zelensky, what is the return on that investment? What does the person in the suburbs of any town USA get out of that investment? That seems to be a pretty reasonable question to ask. And I certainly, in my travels, haven't heard anyone asking that question around here. And granted, I happen to live in an area where there are Ukrainian flags all over the place. Interestingly enough, it's also an area where a lot of Ukrainians and Russians live. They're a significant part of the population here, and I don't see any street-to-street fighting going on. So just throwing that out there as a data point. But I just see a quagmire developing, where it's just this grinding down of wealth, this grinding down of willpower, and this idea that this is a situation that is inevitable and we must dig in as long as it takes for the situation to be resolved. What does resolution look like? What is the ideal timeline for resolution? What is the recompense for all of the blood and treasure lost? These are questions that don't appear to be being asked, at least outside of the circles that we run in.
Isn't that the truth, man? And you would think that they would be more common. I mean, but apparently not. Apparently not. So I don't know. Okay. Well, that whole thing, you're right, is a quagmire, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. We seem to be getting a bit of media respite from it, at least in the mass media. It's kind of strange how quiet it's gotten. I think that's actually indicative of just how badly parts of it are going. But is it going to help anything to add Finland and Sweden to NATO? I don't think so. Is it going to help anything to put more military bases in Poland? I don't think so. All these things are they're just going to exacerbate it. All right. Okay, here's one for you guys. Boom. Maybe this is the problem. The CERN collider. They are going to restart the CERN collider very soon here. and they're going to fire up, and of course that's the 16-mile Large Hadron Collider. And they're going to restart this sucker, and they're going to fire more power through it than they ever have before. And some people are saying that they have an interest in looking at quantum realities and opening portals and such. So I know that all sounds very science fictiony, but if you really dig into this, it gets pretty weird. It gets pretty weird. So they're looking for dark matter and new types of particles and all this stuff. So I don't know, Ruckus. We've joked a lot about the Mandala effect, and we've joked a lot about like how did we end up in this upside down world? Did they actually open a portal years ago with this thing, and we all got sucked into some alternate reality without knowing it? There's all kind of fun thought exercises that can go along with the topic of CERN. But what's your hot take, knowing that they're going to fire this baby back up for the first time in a few years and start looking for that God particle? That's right, Edgar.
They every time they do this, okay, the first time they did this, I don't know how long ago it was. I really felt like, okay, I just want to hide under the desk. This is it. It's the end of the world, folks. We ain't gonna make it, kind of feeling. But then they kind of did it again. I don't know. They do this kind of crap all the time. I think it's just yet again another one of these weird timing things. And that's what I want to look at, because I think with CERN in particular, they always pick a very special date and time that they do that. Usually around this time of year, the summer solstice and all this stuff. They're into some very weird pagan stuff, those people. They're the ones with the Shiva, the god, the destruction Hindu god, sitting outside their place. They did like this giant, like weird, esoteric and pagan religion worship ceremony at its. I don't know. That place creeps me out. So I ain't gonna lie. I'll have to keep one eye on that, I guess. But no more than that, because I'd like to sleep at night. At least until the portal's ripped open and we get the alien slugs or snails or whatever it is. I want to take a quick jab at Brando there, Biden.
Oh yeah, please do. Let's go, Brandon.
How long is it going to take? As long as it takes. Okay. The attitude behind that, whichever way you look at it, it's not good, folks. It could be him acting like, hey, you know what? Sit down and shut up. It's what I say. You're not in control. I am, whatever. It's like the mom nanny state kind of thing. Or it's the opposite. Like, could you imagine saying that to your mom or your dad, like when you were a kid? Like, hey, Billy, how long is it going to take you to clean up that room? As long as it takes. So he's either a petulant child, or he really thinks that, he's like everybody's father, controlling figure of some sort. It's terrible.
Yeah, man, it's pretty disturbing to hear that answer. Oh boy, if you watch, and by the way, if you watch all of those clips, I think it's about 20 minutes in total of footage of Biden at that NATO summit. Ooh, oh man, he got his talking points in. I'll give him that. So let's go, Brandon. But boy, just some weird stumbles, and you get that vibe he's kind of repeating what he's hearing in an earpiece, or you also get the vibe that these questions were posed to his handlers ahead of time. I mean, did you feel that too, Ruckus?
Well, I have a question, because I watched him during the G7 summit, and I've noticed this thing that he's been doing for a while now. He does this a lot, where he like wipes the corners of his mouth when he's talking, or he'll
I've
do it
seen
with
that too. Yeah.
one finger. And I'm like, it's so obvious, and he does it a lot, and he does it frequently now, but I don't remember him doing that before until I just started noticing it. So I'm curious if anyone out there has caught on to that, and if it means anything. And I see him do it when he's talking about specific things, and to me it's almost like some sort of tell, like in poker. You can tell that's when he's dropping a heavy lie. Like someone will ask him a question and he'll give him an answer, and then he'll be like, well, we have to do blah, 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 and he'll wipe the corners of his mouth. I don't know. It's just really weird to see.
Yeah, that's a good notice right there. Good call. Good observation, Ruckus. We may have a bit of a poker tell there. Let's see here. Media Bear says that's what he does when he feels like his eyes are bleeding. Yeah, Wandering Wolf. Anything you want to throw in on that one? But also curious. I noticed that one of the big Netflix events happening right now is the fourth season of Stranger Things is out. And talk about a show that fits right into this whole like heavy metal motif, heavy metal magazine motif from back in the day, as well as for anyone out there that hasn't seen it, if I had to sum up the theme of the whole show, it's basically set in the early 1980s, and you've got a group of young kids who are Dungeons and Dragons kids, and it just so happens that there's a government laboratory in their small town in Indiana that is experimenting with MK Ultra and creating super soldiers, breeding little kids that can do telekinesis and remote viewing and remote assassination. And that leads to science around the opening up of portals, leading to parallel universes, probably, God particles, stuff like that floating around in the upside down. Um, and the kids use D&D as a metaphor to understand the, Frankensteinian science, that Mengelean science that's going on in their town in these secret government labs. They bring the Russians into it also. The Russians are interested in this. They've got creatures popping out of portals and people falling into portals. I don't know. Maybe I'm just stretching a little bit here and watching too much television in my spare time, but I find the timing of the release of season 4, parts 1 and 2 of season 4, to be a little bit odd that it's happening at the same time as CERN is getting fired back up. What do you think of that?
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? I definitely don't look at these things as coincidental. Really at all anymore. I mean, just based on a lot of the conversations that I've had in the industry and pitch meetings and agency stuff, the things are definitely timed to a degree. Of course, the people usually at the executive producerial level are the ones who know exactly what the drop dead dates are for things to launch on streaming services, but the crew lower down don't necessarily have that information to hand. So there definitely is something to that. It's interesting with Stranger Things in particular. I mean, it's like the Goonies meets the X-Files meets the Cthulhu mythos meets Hermeticism. I mean, there's a lot of interesting stuff in there being referenced. And then, of course, they're pulling from the entire canon of cinema. I mean, you have this series that's set in the 80s, but again, there were a lot of genre films that came out during that time that hit on a lot of these ideas of the occult and of alternate universes, you name it. So it's something that is, it's playful and it's fun that people enjoy it. But then I also wonder at the same time too, are they being instructed in a particular view of reality at the same time? And I think that could certainly be the case. I definitely went out to work on that show a couple of times myself. And, when you're on set, nobody's having discussions about these kinds of ideas necessarily, but certainly in the writing process, you end up conjuring a lot of things that you're not even necessarily are aware of until you're there on set looking at the script and you recognize, hey, I've just made a connection to something almost on an intuitive level, and now here we are getting it in the can. So I'm not saying necessarily that these things happen by accident, but I do think that when it comes to the occult, there certainly are things that we're just intrinsically aware of or have been exposed to that are going to show up in the art that we create all the time. And how much of that is just on our nature and how much of that is in programming is a question I would absolutely love to have an answer to. And as far as is CERN firing back up, I think about Event Horizon and how I don't want that happening anywhere near me anytime soon.
Yeah, that's scary for anyone out there that's seen that movie. They know what you're talking about. And if you haven't, you should check it out. If you've got a strong fortitude, you can handle some really dark stuff because that movie is very dark. Yeah. Yep. I don't know, man. Is it gonna what's it gonna do? What's it gonna do this time? Last time they found in the last spin up, they found their Higgs boson particle along with the linked energy field to it. And they, of course, posit that that is vital to the formation of the universe after the Big Bang. I'm sure we all have lots of questions about that little piece of the science, if you will. But who knows? Who knows what happens when you start smashing particles in a 17 plus mile collider like that? And again, in Stranger Things, like if you look in season 3, I believe it is, they show you this piece of technology that the Russians use to open the gate. And it's very CERN esque. You know what I mean? It's not 17 miles of a circle. It's more like this cannon thing, but it's got these rotating discs around it or whatever. And it's got this some kind of nuclear looking green fuel that's in all of the surrounding pumps, whatnot, and it essentially shoots a beam. It's shooting some sort of particle at a subterranean piece of wall that opens up a portal. And here's another one. Here's another piece of Edgar's again correct to point out predictive programming. There's another piece of predictive programming around this going around right now on Hulu. They are streaming a show called I think it's called Skinwalker Ranch or the Mystery of Skinwalker Ranch, and that's all very interesting too. Um, Spore calls it the What in Tarnation show because it's like every episode you're just left going, "What in tarnation was that?" And so are the scientists. There's definitely a lot of weird things that happen there. But when it comes right down to it, one of the biggest things that is a topic on the show is exactly this: the random opening of portals on this property, which for decades now has been the location of multiple UAPs or UFOs, whatever you prefer, cattle mutilations, you name it. All of that, Art Bell sort of stuff is, currently and for many years now, some say for over 100 years, been happening on that ranch. So to see this Hulu broadcast, where a big portion of the mystery there has to do with portals. There are even eyewitnesses who claim to have seen creatures crawl out of these portals and run off into the woods and disappear. Uh, there again, more Stranger Things sort of stuff, more predictive programming in the realms of portals. And to go on top of that, we've now got Fox News, CNN, the Pentagon itself, the Navy, releasing all these videos. One of our friends and listeners sent me a 4chan video talking about, I think it was like 100 or more of these triangle-shaped UAPs showing up over Crimea or something like that. We had another one out here in the States somewhere. I want to say San Diego, but I'm not positive. So they're really pumping the whole UAP phenomena right now also. So I don't know. This leaves a lot of dangerous gaps, I think, for the the um, the hucksters out there, the governments and corporations that want to get us in this mindset. Because once we're in that mindset, once you've absorbed all this predictive programming, it's a lot easier to believe, the next crazy thing, whether that's, alien invasion or portals up and opening up or whatever. Like, we're getting fed all this sci-fi stuff while they say they're going to create dark matter, while they say they're going to use these Higgs boson particles and their associated energy fields, that they claim were involved in the formation of the universe. I don't know. That sounds like a stretch too far to me, just because of what I know about the Big Bang and the faith that one has to have in certain events that can't be proven. But nonetheless, I don't doubt that they are finding new particles and creating novel experiences and interactions inside of these high science chambers and colliders, if you will. So I don't know, you guys, where that's headed, but it's got a lot of opportunities for psychological operations. Got a lot of opportunities for you know, the prestige. You know, doing the prestige upon the global public.
Yeah, it does, and it's also interesting too, to think that I can't recall a time in recent memory where we got the story of science gone wrong, right? Because it seems that there was a time in previous decades where that was a genre. You could find it in literature, you could find it in film. That doesn't seem to be as prevalent now as it used to be. I mean, the idea that you would question science now is almost kind of an alien concept, at least in terms of the popular culture. Another thing that kind of comes to mind, just thinking about portals and how it's something that we've seen in many different genres, because it certainly shows up in horror, it shows up in science fiction. There's also this idea posited by Rupert Sheldrake about morphic resonance. So if you have a self-organizing system and you introduce something new into that system, it essentially takes on the traits of the thing that you've introduced, and then there's a merger of memory that occurs in those systems. So the question is, okay, if portals are opening up and things are coming through it, would we even be aware that something on our timeline has changed? So that idea being introduced into the culture almost necessitates, I think, in a certain way, this idea that we're on a constant progression towards a state of better through science, which I think is, well, particularly dangerous.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It goes back to the new religion being the science, right? Forget the scientific method, forget transparency when it comes to what the plebs are allowed to know about, you know, high science, if you will, this kind of science that we would never have access to. I haven't gotten my invite to go to CERN yet. I don't think you guys have gotten your invites to go down there and view any of this activity. I don't know that I would want to also, but yeah, we just, you know, the new faith, right? This is the new faith. Whatever they tell us about CERN is what we're supposed to believe. And therein lies the danger, right, Ruckus? Because I mean, we just buy everything they tell us now, and we say, well, they're scientists, you know, they're learned doctors, and I'm just dum dum sitting here with the most powerful communication and research tool ever known to in recorded history, the internet. And we're just not allowed to make our own decisions and you know, engage with science. Instead, we're supposed to trust the science. So you know, when we've seen where that takes people over the last couple of years.
It's really interesting and frightening to consider that, because I've heard many times about this idea that the world is very much what the collective consciousness and all the people around kind of project upon it. Like the world does kind of start to mold itself to what we believe it is, kind of what Wandering Wolf was just discussing there. But there's a lot of evidence that shows you can look at the power of like miracles and healing power, the placebo effect, the power of corporate prayer when everyone gets together and worships God in a church environment. There's all these different things. What does that look like on a grand scale when all of that type of energy is focused on this kind of thing? You know, does CERN have to actually do anything, or is it more important that they put on such a grand display and everybody thinks that it is? It's kind of like the wizard behind the curtain in The Wizard of Oz. What's more important? You know, is it really, you know, them smashing particles or everybody believing that they did? Who knows? And does it matter if the end result is the same? And what is the end result? That's the question, you know. you're probably familiar with this movie, Hesher. I don't know if there's a lot of horror movie fans out there, but Wes Craven's New Nightmare was a pretty good one too. You guys brought up Event Horizon, but in Wes Craven's New Nightmare, there was a demon that started to come into real life, like reality, through the concept of the fictional character Freddy Krueger, because so many people were scared of him and believed in him. They gave him this demon-like power and life and brought this into our world through some sort of opening into an alternate dimension, a portal, as it were. So this kind of mythos and story has been going on in our recent history for some time, but only in our recent history from what I can gather, because I read a lot of fiction and science fiction and horror tales, and I have not seen this mixture of portals and transdimensional things until about maybe the late 60s, early 70s. But I would put a firmer bet on the 70s on up, to be honest with you. But I do see it a lot in fiction starting in the 70s and early 80s. And I don't know what that means.
Yeah, and I would argue that the zombie phenomena plays into this also. Going back to George A. Romero, when it was introduced via Night of the Living Dead, and then slowly it was a very cult phenomenon up through the 80s and 90s, but then somewhere in the 2000s, The Walking Dead came along, and the graphic novel crowd started picking that up, and that picked up speed and became one of the most popular graphic novels ever, probably, and then was adapted into a television series, which I believe is finally wrapping up all these years later. I don't know how many seasons. I had to quit watching it. Believe it or not, it became too violent even for me. And I mean, you know what kind of toxic media I've intaken over the years, but it just hit a certain point where it was like, I just don't need to see people's eyeballs being popped out of their heads with baseball bats. I'm out of here. And here we are, like 7 years later or something, and they're still making new seasons of this thing. And of course, zombie movies have just gained in popularity. They've had to redo them all. They've made new ones. They've changed the standard operating procedure of zombies in some movies. They've really packed that whole concept into the collective subconscious. So Ruckus, this idea you're talking about, the power of the zeitgeist, you can look at the 100th monkey effect, or things like this. So and of course it helps dehumanize our fellow brothers and sisters in the world when we have this rattling around in the back of our heads. I mean, I'm subject to that. I think we're all subject to that. It's one of those areas that the dialectic pushes you into, where you start viewing your philosophical worldview and political opposition as dehuman, unhuman, undead, if you will, and of little value and high danger. So there's definitely a zeitgeist factor here, Wandering Wolf. I'm sure you might have a thought on that one.
Yeah, very much so. I'm glad that you brought up graphic novels, because immediately when you said that, what popped into my head? Watchmen. And I mean, not the film, I mean the graphic novel. I mean, the endings are quite different. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't read it. Do check it out. Is well worth it. Alan Moore, the creator of Watchmen, there was an interview with him a few years back, and he was talking about how he considers every single work that he creates to essentially be a complete shamanic vision. He's actually taking people into a theta wave state in the mind, and they're going deep into a shamanic ritual to understand a deeper truth about reality itself. And so, that was Watchmen was the early to mid 1980s, and there's a portal involved in that story as well, in a big way, in terms of how it shifts the consciousness. So this is definitely something that's been played around with, and I think seeded for quite some time. We can find numerous examples throughout media, but I think the other thing too to keep in mind, this is an old trick that we use in movies, and not just in horror films, because we've used this trick in another number of other genres as well. But there's one sound effect that we will mix into a film right before a jump scare or something is about to happen to a character that we feel emotionally invested in, and that is a twig snapping. Even if it's in a scene that's not taking place in the woods, it can be in the middle of a factory. Terminator, the original Terminator film, actually did this as well. They mixed in a twig snapping right before the original Terminator shows up and threatens Sarah Connor. Now, why do you do that? It's because I think it was Edward Murch who figured this out in the 1970s, that there are going to be certain sound effects that human beings respond to at the primal level because it's just baked into our DNA. In a state of nature, as a hunter-gatherer, if you heard that sound in the woods, you would be sent immediately into your sympathetic fight-or-flight response. So we can lift that out of the biological programming of a human being and stick it in a piece of art and get the desired effect on the audience that we seek. So we're doing this all over the place, across genres all the time. So I am wondering now, okay, what does the idea of a portal, what in our primal makeup is that tapping into? What set of expectations are we being asked to recall at a subconscious level from our evolution as a species? That's definitely something to consider. And the other thing too, in terms of motivation, I remember, a couple of years back, when there was all this debate around cleaning up your workplace environment. You can't have any personal posters up in the editing bay anymore. So take down the pinup girls, take down the photos of sports cars. Well, people didn't really make the connection back then, but the reason those images were there was because it raises the productivity of the people in the environment, because they look at those things as objects of desire, things that they actually want to attain, which makes them work harder. So everything that we're exposed to is on some level playing with our innate biological programming. So it's really, really deeper even than what's going on at the script level.
That's really interesting that you bring that up, because I've been noticing that, not particularly the twig snap, but I'm going to be listening for that now. And I actually just watched an amazing deep fake. I think I might have dropped it in our common chat a couple of days ago. But folks, if you want to see what the best cottage industry deep fakes are looking like, you got to subscribe to Control Shift Face on YouTube. That's CTRL Shift Face on YouTube. And the most recent one that I dropped you guys, maybe I'll play it, I don't know, is called Roombo, Roombo, and it is a reimagination of some of the opening sequences of the original Terminator movie, 1984, with Arnold Schwarzenegger, of course, as the is that the T-100, I think, the original Terminator. And whoever does these is absolutely amazing. I have no idea what the process is, what software is involved, how pedestrian their tools are, but they took Arnold Schwarzenegger and replaced his face with Sylvester Stallone. They took Sarah Connor, the actress that plays Sarah Connor, and they replaced her face hilariously with Willem Dafoe. I mean, and it looks completely seamless. And Spore and I watched it like 3 times today, because when I first watched it, I was completely blown away by the quality of the replacement of Arnold Schwarzenegger with Sly Stallone, and completely blown away with how they did Willem Dafoe on Sarah Connor's face. But if you watch it all the way to the end, they give you credits. And in the credits, you discover that this deep fake, it also has Jim Carrey on the head of Wonder Wolf. Remind me, I don't know why I'm forgetting his name. Rest in peace, guy. I forgot your name from Aliens and Terminator. Passed away a while back. He was one of the punks in the beginning of Terminator.
Oh, Bill Paxton.
Bill.
Yeah, thank you. Bill Paxton. His face was replaced with Jim Carrey's The other thug that he was hanging out with, his face was replaced with Brad Pitt. It had one of the dancers in the club had Paris Hilton's face on it. One of the male dancers in the club had George Clooney's face on it. Steve Carell was nested in there. I mean, it's just amazing, absolutely amazing. But yeah, I kind of went down a rabbit hole there because I was excited about the deep fake, the new deep fake. But it relates to what you were talking about there, Wandering Wolf, because in that beginning scene, they've got the lightning and the trash truck is there. Oh, by the way, the guy that played the trash truck driver, his face was replaced with Kanye West. And I didn't notice any of these tertiary face replacements on the first watch. I only noticed Willem Dafoe. It was that good. It was that good. Like, I was convinced that. Oh, it had Donald Trump too. Remember when the Terminator walks into the club and the door girl goes, "Hey, he didn't pay," and the bouncer tries to grab him by the shoulder, and Terminator breaks his hand. They had Donald Trump on they had his head on the bouncer. So the whole thing is an amazing set of deep faking, but it also kind of leads to this place that you're talking about there, Wandering Wolf, where we have a zeitgeist that is now completely malleable and completely vulnerable to deepfake technology, completely vulnerable to neurolinguistic programming, all this stuff. So yeah, I have noticed that emotional build that happens before something comes, and there's a number of other things that go along with it too. There's like a hum or a whir. There's a sucking sound, there'll be a slow build in the orchestration or the music. I'm getting really keen at hearing all those things. And now that myself and our listeners know about the twig snap, we're going to start hearing and seeing that all the time. So thanks for removing the veil a little bit there for us.
Yeah, no problem. I think removing the veil is essential to having some kind of praxeology for dealing with the sheer amount of media and content and images that we're exposed to all the time. So, really, it's true. It's true what the old adage says: the more you know.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. All right. Well, I tell you guys what, Ruckus, you want to throw anything out there before we take a quick intermission?
I'll share an interesting quote that I see passed around occasionally. But Steve Jobs, I'm sure people are familiar with who he was, but he is quoted as saying, "The storyteller sets the narrative for an entire generation." And I think he tried to consider himself or his company, Apple, as setting the narrative for an entire generation. But I think there was something profound or deep in that statement if someone wanted to explore that further and look up when and why he said that. But I know he said that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And there's an argument to be made for that with regards to Apple. I don't know if it's the argument that Steve would have made, but in retrospect, hindsight being 2020, you look at what the iPhone has done to /4 society and the ways in which it's used. Yeah, we could definitely say that their technology is a big part of the storytelling, the story writing, even if it's simply that Black Mirror platform that we hold in our hands. Definitely something to that. All right. Wandering Wolf, anything else before we go to intermission here?
Yeah, man, I can throw in on that real quickly. That's an interesting statement that Steve Jobs has made. And when I sort of step back and I think, okay, well, traditionally, how is storytelling handled in human groups? You'd sit around a fire and the keeper of the tribe's narrative would tell the story of what happened in the before times, right? I mean, in most human cultures, that's kind of how it went. So the idea that there was one person whose job it was to preserve the mythos of the group and translate it down through the ages And there was a trust in that. There was an assumption that on the part of every generation that they were hearing the story that was being told the way it had always been told, with no changes, no embellishments, no revisionism. And now here we are in a situation where each one of us has the campfire with us, which is the smartphone or the cinema screen, and we look into the fire and we almost have a vision. We are given the story directly through the flames, and we don't necessarily interact in real time, one-on-one, with the storyteller, the myriad storytellers who are behind those flames and the messages that we see there. So I think that is it's true, but he didn't go far enough. It's almost a frightening prospect.
Yeah, it really is, man. Because in the days of sitting around the campfire with the elder shaman, or whatever, um, you could interact. You could stop and ask questions. You could try to peel, uh, you know, you could try to peel the context away or bring context to you. And now it's just this passive alpha wave state that you're in, that metaphor I always use about having the media plugged into your third eye with basically a giant beer bong. And you just watch it. And then we create this, the predictive programming seeps in, whether we like it or not. Even if you're looking for it and you pretty much know what it is, it still ends up in your subconscious. You can't avoid it completely. The best thing you can do is, well, I suppose best thing you can do is throw the television and the iPhone out and go to the woods and start that campfire and bring the young ones around and start telling them the story. I mean, that's ultimately returning to a place of sanity, as Terrence McKenna would have said. But obviously that's not where we're headed. We're headed in the other direction, where now, or in the near future, and now for some people, if you want to sit there, and the other good metaphor for this is Plato's cave. You're in Plato's cave, of course. That's one of the most ancient and accurate metaphors for this phenomenon we're discussing about the zeitgeist and being controlled by the stories and the narratives. But next, it's going to be the trajectory here is, instead of holding this thing, and hurting our necks like this all the time. I'm holding my iPhone up and cranking my neck if you're listening on the audio only. We're going to just strap it to our face. We're going to look like this. Strap it to our face, and we've got these, hand pucks or whatever, little controllers, and the screen is going to cover our eyes, right? And it's going to be projected directly into our four senses in a way where I'm not even going to be able to see. You know what I mean? I don't even like to be in a room with my back to a door while I'm watching TV or in a public place. But now they're going to say, hey, you want to go to the Star Wars cantina? Well, here, strap this thing to your face. Yeah, and Ruckus has something to add to that too. What else is going to be involved with this, Ruckus?
Or let a self-autonomous robot perform surgery on you and implant a nice little chip into your brain. Thanks, Elon Musk.
Ooh, yes. Neuralink. We've got Neuralink coming. We've got the metaverse here right now. And we're going to strap all this stuff to us. And after strapping stuff to you becomes passe and old tech, it's going to be woven into us. It's going to be a chip, quite literally, woven into your brain with, like Ruckus said, a autonomous surgeon robot. And boom, you're it. You've arrived. You're part of the new abnormal. You're part of the fourth industrial revolution. You're doing your part to make sure that the United States is not overshadowed by China's technology and their move into the fourth industrial revolution. And you're 10 steps further into this new zeitgeist, this new set of predictive programming At that point, it actually becomes something more akin to what you might see in the Black Mirror, I would say, Wandering Wolf.
Well, it's interesting that you bring this up in those terms. Let me put a capstone on it this way. I think there is someone in Hollywood who, in the 1960s, tried to warn us about exactly what you just described, Hesher, and that person would be Stanley Kubrick in 2001: A Space Odyssey. Because if you look at the black monolith, I'm saying this assuming that everyone has seen it. It's filmed from the 60s, so I will go ahead and spoil it. But if you look at the black monolith that shows up near the beginning of the film, where we're dealing with the early man, ape man, struggling through a drought in the African plains, if you take the monolith and you turn it on its side, its aspect ratio is 2:35:1, which is the exact same aspect ratio of most feature films, including that film. And so throughout the progression of that film, as we're being exposed to the monolith, what eventually happens? Dave Bowman goes into the monolith and he's shot at light speed beyond space and time, and he's artificially aged and accelerated to a point where his consciousness is removed from his human body and he transcends. He becomes the next stage in human evolution, which is essentially an all-knowing, all-powerful, non-corporeal entity that transcends space and time. So you have a very clear transhumanist message in that film. And even in its sequel, 2010, The Year We Make Contact, even though that wasn't Kubrick who directed it, that was Pete Hyams who directed that film, he took that same message through to its logical conclusion, the transhumanist message of human evolution. So I think this idea of the 2:35:1 aspect ratio, monolith being the cinema screen, eventually being our TV screens and our phones, he definitely, I think, had some inkling as to what was on its way down the pike for the species.
Yeah, another great point there. Kubrick told us so many things with his films. He really did. It's amazing. If you really go down the rabbit hole of Kubrick analysis, there's so much to learn and so much to think about. Very intriguing. And that's a really interesting point there about the aspect ratio of the black monolith. My goodness. There's so much going on in there. I could point people to our friend Jay Dyer's page. He's done some really good analyses on Kubrick. Of course, there are others as well out there. A lot of great takes on Kubrick. That was another thing. Sorry, I'm gushing about this deep fake. In the deep fake, Wandering Wolf, you're gonna love this. Remember the scene where the Terminator goes to Sarah Connor's house to assassinate her, but she's not home. Her roommate is, right? And he assassinates the roommate's boyfriend, who, by the way, they had Mark Zuckerberg's face on. A key moment. But the phone rings and the answering machine picks up. And on the answering machine, you hear the voice of Wendy from Shining. This is it was a nice little Easter egg for sure in there. I was like, wow, this is a real class act when it comes to well thought out deep fakes. So yeah, it had a Shelley Duvall appearance actually by voice in that particular deep fake. So interesting stuff, man. I'm going to link everybody to that. I'm probably not going to play it. I don't know how YouTube feels about that or if that would be an issue, but I'm definitely going to link it on the show page and I'll drop it in the chats during the intermission here, which we are going to take in a moment here. Either you guys want to throw anything out before we go to intermission, and we'll come back for wrap it up in a quick segment for the second half. I'm going to let YouTube roll, you guys. I'm not going to section us off over to Rockfin. So stick with us during the intermission on YouTube there, please. I will roll out some videos that Mindspace Art has set up for alternate current radio during the intermission here. I got a couple of them, so you guys feel free to take 5. But anything you guys want to throw out there before we go to intermission? All right, going once, going twice. Here we go. We're going to go to intermission, everybody. I want to thank you for hanging out with us. If you're just joining us, you are listening to the Boiler Room. This is the June the 30th edition of the Boiler Room, and we really want to thank you for joining us. alternatecurrentradio.com. That's our website. That's where you can figure out how to support, how to buy merch, and how to find all the other wonderful shows over here at Alternate Current Radio. Ruckus has some merch hanging up behind him there, and you can see it in the background. You got that awesome Boiler Room shirt, Daily Ruckus shirt. You can find all that stuff in our store. That definitely supports us. And yeah, you can fly your Social Reject flag. We have a Social Rejects Club shirt, mugs. We got all that good stuff. So thank you in advance for your support, and thank you all of you that have kicked in on our spring donation drive and such. And here we go. We're going to take a quick intermission, and we'll be right back with you for some more Boiler Room.
A new place, a new home for a while. Let me feel alive. Nothing to hold me back. Take my time, just enjoy the ride. A new man passing by. Life is good, best I've ever felt. Get me up, somewhere new, somewhere I can find myself. Oh, I feel so alive. As I reach out to the sky. I found my way. I was in the dark against it all, but made it through the day. 'Cause I found my way. In bad times, I know I'll be okay. 'Cause I found my way. 'Cause I found my way. 'Cause I found my way. My way. My way. My way. My way. 'Cause I found my way, my way, my way, my way, my way. I found my way. I was in the dark against it all, but made it through the day. 'Cause I found my way. In bad times, I know I'll be okay. 'Cause I found my way. 'Cause I found my way. 'Cause I found my way, my way, my way, my way, my way. 'Cause I found my way, my way, my way, my way, my way. I found my way, I found my way. I was in the dark against it all, but made it through the day. 'Cause I found my way, I found my way. In bad times, I know I'll be okay. 'Cause I found my way.
All right, let's see here. If anyone wants to support us, that is our website right there. We'll just throw that one out real quick. alternatecurrentradio.com/support. A couple of you have reached out tonight and given us some support. We really appreciate that. Here's another recent one from Mindspace Art. Mindspace, you're awesome. Thank you so much for everything you do. Everyone be sure and get subscribed to the Soul Purpose podcast. Here you go.
Hush now, bird, you cannot fly. Sparrow, save your only flight. Winter's here and you are cold. No other bird would be so bold. No other bird would be so bold.
All right. Well, let's see here. What else do we got lurking on the bit shoot that we can throw up there? Oh yeah, this is a good one. Social Rejects Club.
I'm quite relieved to concede. I think I've had more than enough.
I feel like BitChute's doing something a little weird tonight. Like all these are chopping off before they're over. But that's all right. That's all right. We're gonna come back in pretty quickly. We're gonna come back in pretty quickly here. In fact, we may just go ahead and jump right back into it. Ruckus, don't feel the need to rush back. But Wandering Wolf, give me a thumbs up if you're ready to rock and roll here. All right, looking good, looking good. We are gonna get back into some boiler room here. Tell you what, we'll just give it one of these, and we'll be right back with you here in the boiler room. That's right. You're listening to the Boiler Room or watching the Boiler Room if you're out there on YouTube or Rockfin tonight. Thanks for joining us. This is the June 30th, 2022 edition of Boiler Room. I've lost track of the numbers again. We're somewhere in the 460s, maybe 468, somewhere like that. But I'll get that figured out and rectified later because who cares, right? Who cares? We're just going to keep doing them. We're going to keep doing them until there's thousands of them. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight here in the Boiler Room. It's been a intriguing conversation per usual over here. I'm joined by Mr. Corey Drayton, the Wandering Wolf. I'm joined by Ruckus of the Daily Ruckus. And lovely Spore is working things in the background, making sure everything goes off smoothly, doing what she does over here. I'm your host. My call sign is Hesher. My name is Brian McLean, and you can catch me on the brand new Brian McLean show coming up this Saturday at 9 a.m. Central. It's going to be a 3-hour event every Saturday on TNT. So that's tntradio.live. And if you have not joined our Discord yet, please do so, because whenever we do go live, we put a notification out in that Discord. So you can mute the server, but then unmute the notification channel if you don't want your phone going off all the time. But if you want to get in there and mosh around with everybody, you can leave the notifications on the whole server, and you'll get notified when people pop into the general chat We've got social rejects from around the globe, all over the place, lurking and moshing there in the Discord. So come on in and make yourselves at home. We'd be happy to have you. We're working our way to our 500th member. That's going to happen at some point in the near future here, the more of you join. So we encourage you to do so. It is also manifested into a bit of a knowledge management system. There we go. Someone in the chat just watched that deep fake I was talking about. Roombo. Yep. Creative Accidents. There he is. Thanks. He just dropped some pictures in the Discord there. And it's super funny. So they've done deep fakes in there with, like I said, Kanye West, Willem Dafoe, Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jim Carrey, Zuckerberg, Shelley Duvall, Bill Hader, Donald Trump, Paris Hilton, George Clooney, Matthew McConaughey, and Steve Carell. So get out there and check that out. Control Shift Face on YouTube. All right, so we're getting back into it here, and I don't want to I only have a couple of topics to finish the show out. Of course, you guys are welcome to throw in anything you want. Before we go any further, I will point out that America just lost its last World War II Medal of Honor recipient at age 98. So that's sort of something this week that is a bit of a big story to a lot of us, probably. War hero who used flamethrower and explosives to clear 7 pillboxes under heavy machine gun fire at the Battle of Iwo Jima passes away peacefully in West Virginia. So Woody Williams, yes, rest in peace, Woody Williams, our very last World War II Medal of Honor recipient. How would Woody feel about what's going on? Herschel, Woody Williams, how would he feel about what's going on in the next 6 months when it comes to conflict and war and all that? I don't know. I guess we're not going to know, but I'm glad he's passed on peacefully and in a better place. But I do find that somewhat noteworthy and wanted to just mention that. Wandering Wolf, we're getting to the age now where a lot of the old timers are leaving the building. There you go. There's Woody Williams Foundation confirmed his death on Tuesday after he had been hospitalized. So last living Medal of Honor recipient from the Second World War. How about that?
Wow, that's really, really something. I mean, certainly may he rest in peace, and condolences and thoughts to his loved ones and family left behind. I do wonder, what he would make of the way things are, what has become, certainly of the United States, and just this sort of bloodthirsty fascination and obsession with warfare amongst those in the power elite. Would love to have had an opportunity to pick the brain of someone like him to really gain an understanding from that generation of how they feel about things the way they are now. Just like you said, Hesher, I think about this all the time. And then I think too about how different war, but World War I was referred to as the war to end all wars, and then of course it wasn't. So this just seems to be another aspect of the cycle of history where it takes 3-4 generations, to really see a shift in how so many of the narratives that undergird the things that we hold dear, the decisions that we make, to see shifts in those things. And I really wonder, when we're at that age, what the world will look like. This is something I think about all the time. I would love to say that in some small way, I was able to contribute to making the world a better place. In some small way, I was
I'm
hearing some echo here.
Sorry about that.
No worry, man. It's all good. And I just hold out every single day, for myself that, okay, I'm doing that, even if it sometimes seems that things are dark and grim. I try to connect with someone every single day and make their day a little bit better. I try to create opportunities for people around me to better themselves, to learn something, to make some money, to connect in some way, whatever it is. And I think, if enough of us do that, we can turn things around. I think that's all I really have to say.
Yeah, that's well said, man. Because we may be the social rejects, we may have taken the brunt of social rejection, but that does not take away our imperative to try to make things better, regardless, because we know we're not alone in that, and we know a lot of people are experiencing that more and more by the day. So yeah, very very well said. Ruckus, wouldn't it have been interesting to sit down with that man and show him the Navy NAVC warfare propaganda piece about pronouns that we showed last week? I would love to sit down and see what someone like that has to say. Someone who put it all on the line, someone who saved a lot of lives, and he's really, you can tell he's a really great guy because he said, "I'm not the recipient of this medal. I simply hold it on behalf of those that did not survive." And that one really got me. That one got me in the feels. So I really would wonder what some of those people like him, who are now all gone, would think when they see our military pandering to mental illness of pronouns and so many other topics.
Well, he lived to see that, unfortunately. And I know that sounds bad, but he did, because that's been going on right now. And he just passed away. So, but I guess we don't have like any thoughts or ideas unless he had like a Facebook or a Twitter and he was tweeting it. But I doubt it, what his thoughts and feelings were about it. But one can only guess. I'll give you an example of what one 66-year-old man feels about all that recently, thanks to, oh gosh, I think this was sent to us from Creative Accidents. Yes, it was. Shout out to Creative Accidents. This man was denied giving blood, even though he's been giving up to 125 pints of blood over 5 decades. Until recently, this guy, he showed up in central Scotland. He was told to complete a form before he could donate blood, and the form asked him whether he was with child or had been pregnant in the last 6 months. The poor 66-year-old man thought the question was ridiculous and refused to answer and was not allowed to donate blood. So I wonder what Woody would have thought about that one. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. What a clownish world. What a clownish world. Yeah, good one. Good one there. Creative Accidents in the chat says, "What about all the Russians who marched to Berlin and liberated Ukraine from Nazis?" Yeah, that would make for some interesting conversation too.
Here's
Absolutely.
actually, you know what? I would actually really be interested more than anything what he thought of the Navy releasing the footage of the Tic Tac UFO, because here's a guy who, judging by his age, so he was 98, right? So I figure he was certainly at least of a young boy age and preteen area. He would have grown up with the UFO mythology from its science fiction comic book movie roots onto this phenomena that we've seen. So I think there's somebody who his entire life has seen the progression of this UFO mythos as it grew. I would be curious what he would think of that, to be honest.
Oh yeah, that would be super interesting to find out, definitely. Okay, well, let's see here. I want to give quick shout outs here. We got Gerchop, we got Brent Howell, we got some guy named Adam Clark, we got Timothy, we got Freedom Isn't Free, we got High on Fire 88, we got Todd Bushi, we got Edgar, we've got Media Bear, we got Don Gennaro out there listening. We've got I think Cricket's probably out there. We got Creative Accidents. We got Brian Snotty. What's up, Brian? Timmer and Derp and Whitebird. How's it going, brother? And many more people in the Discord chat there. We got Just Cuz 75, Jolene K. How you doing, Jolene? We love you. All you folks, and of course, all of you that aren't here for the live show that are watching this after the fact. We very much appreciate you. Very much appreciate the comments and any likes or subscribes we may have earned. We really appreciate that. And of course, over on Rockfin, we've got Martin and Conrad hanging out in there. Thanks, Conrad, for the tip. That is much appreciated. Big shout out to Rockfin and everybody that checks out the boiler room over there. Okay, the next thing I want to throw past you guys here is I'm gonna have to take a deep breath. I'm gonna need that fuck it energy to get through this one. This one really grinds my gears. But let me just play this news piece for you, and hopefully my muting is all set up here. So I'll just roll this one for you folks. This is out of KCRA News.
Now to the growing concerns and anger after a major data breach exposed information on thousands of California gun owners. Tonight, investigators are trying to determine how that information got out in the first place. Personal information for Californians who were granted or denied a concealed carry permit from 2011 to 2021 has been disclosed online.
KCRA 3's Orko Mann live for us outside at the Attorney General's office with what gun owners and advocates are demanding now. Orko.
Well, gun owners and advocacy groups want whoever's responsible for this data breach to be held accountable. We're talking about a decade's worth of personal information being available online for several hours. Attorney General Rob Bonta has launched an investigation, but some say the damage is already done.
Hi, this is Sam Paredes. Can I help you?
It's been a busy day inside this office. Sam Paredes, executive director of the Gun Owners of California, fielding calls left and right.
Your information has been divulged.
The California Department of Justice says an update made to its firearms dashboard portal Monday leaked the personal information of Californians who were granted or denied a concealed and carry weapons permit between 2011 and 2021. That included their names, birth dates, gender, race, driver's license numbers, addresses, and criminal history. The DOJ says the dashboard was online for less than 24 hours and the website is currently unavailable.
We are absolutely horrified.
Paredes says the data breach was irresponsible.
We are calling for Attorney General Rob Bonta's resignation because he has clearly been unable to control his agency. There are actually lawsuits already making their way through the process challenging privacy issues against the Attorney General.
The DOJ is investigating how this could have happened. In a statement, Attorney General Rob Bonta said in part, quote, "This unauthorized release of personal information is unacceptable and falls far short of my expectations for this department. I am deeply disturbed and angered."
Well, the biggest concern is now you have given a roadmap to anybody with evil intent.
It's an alarming situation.
Butte County Sheriff Corey Honey is president of the California State Sheriff's Association. He tells me he's concerned about criminals stealing guns.
At the end of the day, I think that there's been a real loss of peace of mind on the part of many law-abiding citizens, and now they have to be concerned about it falling into the wrong hands and being used in a way that causes them harm.
Although it's unclear how many people were affected, some say it could be in the hundreds of thousands. That's why the California Rifle and Pistol Association is getting state lawmakers involved.
We are getting them to write letters to the AG demanding a full investigation, demanding that someone's held accountable or somebody's are held accountable, and that we get to the bottom of this and we make sure this never, ever happens again.
DOJ says it will provide credit monitoring services for those whose data was breached, and we have tips for you on our website, kcra.com, on how to protect your accounts. Reporting live from downtown Sacramento tonight, Orko Mann, KCRA 3 News.
All right, Orko, thank you.
Well. This is huge. This is absolutely huge. Egregious. I feel like I've been using that word a lot lately. Really having to lean into that word. The entire database. 10 years. 10 years. Everybody who purchased a firearm, everybody who tried to purchase a firearm and was unable, everybody who got the rare folks that were actually granted concealed carry licenses, and everyone who was denied, which is, I can tell you, is a much larger number than those that were approved because it's California. I'm in that. All right. My data has been breached. My PII, my personally identifiable information was breached in this. So was Spore's. And so were many of our listeners, our friends, our family. They have our driver's license numbers. They have our addresses. If anyone has a criminal record, they have that. I mean, the only thing they didn't say was your social security number, and I'm guessing that's in there too. Unreal. Unreal. How dare you? Strange things are afoot here in the boiler room. Just think about all the ways in which this can go wrong. They just doxed 10 years worth of personally identifiable information in a database, and they said several hours, and then they said less than 24 hours. I can tell you it was pretty much 24 hours. Yeah, that's right, Session Jones. We already have a huge problem all over the country, California in particular, of criminals targeting people who they know have a firearm in their home. Stupid. That's right. Criminals who are monitoring that database, I'll go ahead and let you know you got the wrong address these days, because I don't live in California anymore. And yeah, I got a Remington 870 before I left. So I guess I'll just tell everyone that, because my personal information has been fucking leaked. And a lot of the people I care about's personal information has been fucking leaked. Rob Bonta, are you kidding me? He says he's mad. He's upset. We don't care. We don't care. We want him to take responsibility. I want him to take responsibility. I want everyone who had a hand in that to take responsibility for it. And I want to see every single one of the emails that led up to that happening, because I have a really hard time believing that this was an accident, because it happened just days after all of these Supreme Court 2A decisions came down. It's happening right when the ATF is trying to take pistol braces out of our hands and classify anyone who has an AR pistol as having an illegal assault rifle just by changing some definitions around. Egregious. This is absolutely egregious. Names, addresses, driver's license numbers. So not only does this set up criminals looking to do home invasions and burglaries to acquire firearms illegally for nefarious reasons, but it also sets everybody up on that list for identity theft. There are so many vulnerabilities. I'm probably not even scratching the surface with the amount of risk they just put everybody in. You know, I had my personal data breached when I worked for the government at one point. Tens of thousands of us did, maybe millions. And at that point, it was just like, why do we even let you guys violate our Fourth Amendment rights by holding all this data? Like, what are you doing with it? And I don't have the video to hand. I can't show it to you. If I find it, I'll throw it on the show page and the reference links. But the reason that they say that this went public was because they wanted to make this gun information database available to researchers at, I believe, UC Davis. And I guarantee you, whatever research was happening at UC Davis is probably funded by Bloomberg or someone similar who is trying to cook books and make up stats that they can then do gun control propaganda with. There's a new study that just came out just like that, funded by Bloomberg, and it's garbage. It's complete trash. Complete trash. I'm just beside myself about this one. I cannot believe that Rob Bonta and his Attorney General Ghoul counsel has done this in the name of research, in the name of oops, in the name of negligence. We're to believe that. But I'm guessing if many of you are like me, you're starting to wonder if this wasn't done intentionally. If all the gun owners of California for the last 10 years, you don't even have to be a gun owner. You could have gotten some sort of strike on your background check, whether that was legit or not. You could have been denied a concealed carry license. Your data's on there too. Your name, your birth date, your address, your driver's license number. Who knows? Probably your SSN. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Ruckus, talk me off a ledge here. Tell me that this was an accident. Tell me that Rob Bonta doesn't deserve to be fired and had charges put up upon him. I mean, this kind of breach. I mean, when I had my federal job, PII was a huge deal. It was a huge deal. We were not allowed by policy to put people's PII into databases unless that database was completely set up for that, had gone through a rigorous security check. Any pieces of the SQL database that held that stuff had to be behind extra protections. Sometimes there would have to even be a completely separate server that would connect to the main database server, and that information would be locked behind, a separate firewall so that this kind of thing doesn't happen. Because when this kind of thing does happen, you're supposed to be, legally responsible for it. Bad things can happen to your organization if you leak PII. But I guess we don't live in that world anymore, right? Because we're seeing political PII leaks either by negligence, but we're all having a hard time believing it's negligence or an oopsie when California, New York, Maryland, a number of other states are now just, the shrieking, the liberal tears and shrieking is intensifying with the Supreme Court landing on the side of the Constitution. So I don't know. This feels to me like it would be much more likely to have been done on purpose. And if that's the case, I want to see the email strings that led to that. We should have full transparency on this, considering what has just been done.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's just conjecture or conspiracy theory, I suppose, as to the motivation if it was done on purpose. But the problem lies in with this giant data collection. It's kind of like the best way to quit smoking is never to start, I think it's a bigger issue that we have so many databases and so much personal information, and there's all of these, they're everywhere, and all of them eventually get hacked, compromised, and the companies and the people who hold these databases and the people who run the servers, they don't always tell you, so this is not, there's a good chance that this sort of thing has happened before. And what happens to this data? Where does it go? Chances are somebody snatched it up, screen recorded it or whatever, and then is selling it on the dark web. Okay. So now there's 100 million different things that people could nefariously use this for. Like you mentioned, it's not just about the people who own the guns. What about the people who don't own the guns? What if how deep does this go? Do they know everything about the reason that people were like, hey, wouldn't you, if you're a creepy rapist and you want to break into home owners who only are owned by like single mothers who were denied owning a gun because the state felt they didn't have a significant enough need? Hey, look at that gun-free zone, target. I mean, a whole bunch of like crazy stuff could happen because of this. And I don't know. This is just, I think it's setting it up to where, like, because it's already a problem, the criminals like to target the gun owners. So they'll steal their weapons, and we'll see more, violence and criminal action being taken, but it just proves again that the criminals don't necessarily care about the laws that are being passed about the guns. They're still going to be criminals and still figure out how to get them. But it certainly doesn't help when the data leak makes it easier for them. It's like the Pokemon Go. They're going to be walking around with their phone, like, okay, next one, just move down the street and hit them all.
Yeah, man. You're right. There's also you're right in pointing out there's also that reverse aspect there. Criminals can target people they know have firearms to steal them, or they can check them against the database to make sure that there's someone that has been denied or is just not in the database and therefore probably doesn't own any firearms. I mean, that's quite the it's like a white pages for home invasion. It's like here's the ones you can steal from, here's the ones that are unarmed, and just have at it. And is there a single criminal in that 10 years? Well, only if they were not a criminal somewhere in that 10 years and bought something legally before they ended up a felon. So, and that's not to say that everyone that is a felon that can't own guns anymore, that I even think that's based, because we know that system is abused too. But nonetheless, by and large, this only affects law-abiding people. Those are the only ones it affects, because criminals, felons, they're not able to buy them. So the only way they get them is by stealing them or buying them on the black market. So this is a perfect example of how something like a gun registry, this is a perfect example of why 2A supporters are very staunch against gun registries, Wandering Wolf, because this is the kind of crap that can happen. Okay, so Session Jones says they're claiming that no SSNs were leaked. That's good. If that's true, I appreciate that data point. But I mean, just the idea of a registry, and what were they doing with this registry in the first place? What purpose was it serving? Well, arguably not much at all, other than intel for law enforcement, data to share with other agencies, and with research institutes. Why the hell should a research institute have my name, my address, and the model number of my shotgun and the serial number of my shotgun? Why? Why on earth is that something, like, even if everything was above board and this was an oops, why are we to be okay with them sharing a unconstitutional, unnecessary, illegal gun registry with a leftist controlled gun grabbing community of so-called researchers? We don't, that's not an imperative. That's not something that law-abiding citizens stand to gain from. I mean, it's bad enough for Californians already that they can't buy 90% of the firearms that are available out there due to all the various crap red tape laws that they have. But now they have a registry. They know what kind of and how many of everything everyone has, and boom, that's it. That's it. It's bad news. It's bad news, man.
Yeah, egregious is definitely the right word for something like this. I mean, this is just absolutely disgusting on many levels. Where to even begin? To your point about you having these registries in the first place, which is just absurd. I think that's just such a it's just, I hate to use the word problematic. It's the only word that comes to mind. I know that's a loaded word these days because the wokies tend to use it left and right. But when you're signing government paperwork, when you're filling out these forms and giving them all this information, is there a clause in most documents that says that they reserve the right to sell that information or share it to third parties? In most of the documents that I've signed, I haven't seen anything like that explicitly. So I think that one of the possible vectors of pushing back against this could be some sort of class action lawsuit or civil action around that very issue. Who has the right to look at that data once it has been tendered by the citizens to government agencies? That is a conversation that needs to occur, absolutely. One of the greatest mantras that came out of the last 2 years was no liability, no trust. So I say let's extend that to these organizations. If they're going to demand this kind of information from citizens, then what guarantees do we have that it's being protected from malfeasance? And I mean malfeasance beyond the obvious government malfeasance, but also what protections against that data being sold or given away to other interested parties? I think it's profoundly disturbing that a university would have access to that kind of information, and every single person in that database not being informed that this was in discussion, let alone had been decided upon in something that was actually occurring. That's an incredibly disturbing practice, and they can only get away with it because most people are living lives of just such stress and chaos that they don't have the time to think about these things. They don't really take the time to look at the documents that they are signing and think about all of the implications of these entities having access to their information. Now, as far as Rob Bunta is concerned, I really hope that they nail him to the wall for negligence at the very least. Do I think that this was an accident? Of course not. Absolutely not. I think that somebody in his position certainly could have created the conditions where something like this could happen. And of course, we live in an era now where the mainstream media are going to spin and cover up and try to erect a false narrative or enough confusion in a narrative around events like this. So you never know for sure if it was an accident or not. When these things happen, it always kind of creates a catch-22 because, again, I think that a lot of these crises that we see occurring, they're meant to drive the populace to this place of, well, something must be done. Something must be done. And of course, what tends to be inserted into that is government agencies have to do something about problem X. And we don't want to have more of the same. We don't want to have more of these entities that are big and cumbersome and prone to failure and prone to breach, supervising other entities that are prone to the same thing. So I definitely think that a national conversation around how much data it should be collected in the first place by these organizations, and what are the liabilities and protections and responsibilities around that data. That is a massive conversation that needs to happen. And I think that something like this is great ammunition, pun intended, for those of us who do exercise our Second Amendment rights to say, look, I don't want my information to be in the hands of these organizations. So that is definitely something to use to push back against some of this draconian regulation and legislation that we're dealing with now.
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. Ruckus, you had a good point in the private chat there. Expand, please.
Oh, I was thinking, it's unlimited, the terrible things that can happen because of this, including the fact that people can take this information and use it to blackmail you. Maybe they could contact your employer or try to impress something negative about, like, it's a dirty secret or your criminal history or why you were denied a gun, whatever. This is just dangerous, disgusting information that doesn't belong in anybody's hands, including the governments to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who is Bonta again, or what's his name?
He Rob Bonta. He is the California State Attorney General, and it was his office that was holding this database. It was his office that opened this database up to the public. ostensibly so that UC Davis could get in there and dig around and cook some books and lie to us with statistics, poor statistics.
It's an interesting, because that's part of the overall, that's part of the justice system, right? And so is the enforcement, the law enforcement. We're seeing a lot of failures in these traditional standard organizations and parts of our government and communities that have normally been part of the glue that holds everything together. And we've seen a progression of corruption and whatnot, but now it's just we see them falling on their faces out in the open, in the public, and people causing a massive amount of distrust in the system, I guess, is my point. I don't know if anyone is picking up on that, what I'm putting down here, but it's just it's all too much distrust happening at once, I think. And again, a running theme tonight with all these stories is interesting timing. So
yeah, so much synchronicity. The synchronicity of the new nightmare, the egregious synchronicity of the new nightmare. And the other thing, this it's so weird to juxtapose what's gone on in the Supreme Court with the timing of all this, because the other thing that's gone on is this gun control bill that our rhinos, our fake Republicans, 14 of them got behind in the Senate and jammed through the system in the wake of Uvalde and the Buffalo incidents. And the worst piece of garbage that these guys supported was this concept of federal support to states, i.e., giving money to states who want to engage in red flag gun confiscations without due process. How much more fascistic, how much more un-American can it get than red flag confiscations? And now we have a roadmap. The evil doers out there, the bulwarks out there in California, and this thing has leaked. Don't kid yourselves. I already know of at least a couple of people that have the list. And trust me, they're not happy that they have the list. They're not sharing it, and they feel very uncomfortable having it. But we do know of people, content creators, who are in possession of this list. So now if someone wants to initiate a red flag confiscation on someone, they have more tools at their disposal. They can go say, yeah, I've seen more than once, several times, the media saying, oh, this person, they had over 5,000 rounds of ammunition, or they owned 12 AR-15s or something like that, as though there's something wrong with that, as though that's illegal for some reason, because it's not. But they'll say, oh, this person has, you know what I mean? That's like saying, oh, Jay Leno has too many cars. Sorry, he's Jay Leno. He can afford too many cars, and you can suck it. Just like the guy that has 10 AR-15s. He can afford 10 AR-15s and 10,000 rounds, and you can suck it if you don't like that, because this is America. I thought this was America, right? So now these brown shirt gun grabber wannabe types, they now know exactly what you got. Red flag, red flag, red flag. Why would and I guess that is one reason why a corrupt attorney general's office might leak this stuff. That serves their purpose. That serves their political ambition, their un-American, illegal, unconstitutional ambition. So again, egregious, absolutely egregious, illegal. This is illegal to do. You can't dox people like this and just walk away and say, oops, I'm so mad that happened under my watch. I'm sorry. If I did that on accident, I would be writing personal letters to everybody. I would be doing everything that I could, all the way up to trying to fix it, make it better, take responsibility for it, and go do something else because I failed at my job of making sure that my constituents, my clients, my voters, whatever, that their information was safe. Is Rob Bonta going to do that? I don't think so. I really, really doubt it. Is anyone going to get strung up for this? I hope so. Like I said, we want transparency. We want to see the emails. I want to know what transpired between UC Davis and Rob Bonta's office. I want to, we should know this because that's my information. That's your information. If you're like me, if you're like Spore, if you're like our friends and family members that are 2A supporters in California, there's a lot. And when it first came out, they tried to tell us, oh, it's just LA. It's just a few 100,000 people from LA. But then within 8 hours, it expanded to actually, no, it was the entire state, everyone for a decade. And it sat there online for an entire 24 hours almost. And it's out there now. So we want apologies. We want responsibility taken. We want to know what's going to be done about it in the future. We want that database scrubbed, right? Wondering, Wolf, should they be allowed to continue holding that data or should that database have a giant magnet taken to it at this point?
Magnet. That entire database should be scrubbed. All of that information should be deleted. Let's reset the whole thing back to zero and at least have some conversation around how to handle this kind of data before even considering having something like this in practice ever again. I mean, at the very least, and if this situation follows precedent, I'm sure they're going to find some pleb to take the fall for this. They're going to blame some, temporary worker or just someone at the entry level who breached a protocol entirely on accidents, that the higher ups don't have to be accountable for what's occurred here. And if we see that happening, the people need to call it out and make sure that accountability is passed up the chain of incidents, not down.
100%, my friend. Yeah, that's all I got tonight, you guys. You guys are welcome to throw anything else in there. Ruckus, you got anything else you want to throw out there tonight? Any updates or thoughts on what we've been talking about, or anything positive you can lead us out of here with?
Yeah, I want to add an addendum to your list of things that we want. We also want the names of the people in Ghislaine Maxwell's little black book before she accidentally #doesn't kill herself.
Yes, thank you. Absolutely. We want that. We want as much attention on that.
We also want the authorities to turn over John McAfee's body to his widow, Janice McAfee. And I
Word.
believe she's passing around a petition right now in a follow-up to last week. So follow her, find her Twitter, and get involved. Sign the petition to have his remains returned to her. That's my big ending right there. But also, yeah, hopefully I'll have a new episode of, I got it right this time, the Daily Ruckus tomorrow. If not, but I think I will, but if not, you'll at least hear me, like I said, on Sole Purpose. An advance warning, this was me and Mindspace Art just kind of got together and just let it fly. No preparation, no theme, no topic. I may have been a little loopy on something. We'll just leave it at that. So it's an interesting conversation. There's some good stuff, but there might be some cringy stuff. So just wanted to give everyone a heads up, but it's an interesting one for sure. And I look forward to everyone checking that out. And, newer episodes of the Daily Ruckus, which can be found at alternatecurrentradio.com in case you've been missing them. So thanks again for having me, in case I didn't say it, Hesher. May God bless each and every one of you, and may God save this republic.
All right. Thanks, Ruckus. That is the Ruckus among us, everybody. Mr. Adam Clark right there, the man behind the Daily Ruckus. And gosh darn it, one of my right-hand men over here at Alternate Current Radio. I don't know what I'd do without you, Ruckus. Thanks so much for your time. Same could be said for the Wandering Wolf. Wandering Wolf, over to you for Save Round's final thoughts. Any other black pills, red pills, white pills, blue pills you want to address before we shut the pharmacy door here tonight?
Well, Hesher, I guess all I really have to say, apart from thanks for having me back, it's been another fun episode. I always come away with just a much clearer understanding of what's going on, but also more determination than ever to just continue exercising discernment in the world and trying to just share with other people a praxeology for how to make meaning of all of this and understand what's going on. So I would just say to everyone out there, be vigilant, keep your eyes open, and thanks for listening.
That's right. That's the Wandering Wolf, everybody. And I'm Hesher for Spore. And on behalf of everyone else that comes in and out of the boiler room, we want to thank you for your time spent viewing tonight's video podcast or your time spent listening to the audio podcast. You'll be able to find both of those at alternatecurrentradio.com. Along with a healthy list of reference links, because when you try to tell your friends and family about what you heard tonight, sometimes they'll just say, nah, those are crazy conspiracy people. Those are purveyors of mis, dis, and malinformation. Well, no, we are not. I'm sorry. None of the Social Rejects Club is that. We do our best over here, and we do it out in the open and hope to encourage other people to do the same. We don't want to be stuck in the polarizing dialectics. We are, but we're doing our best to chip away at that stone here in the boiler room each and every week. That's it, everybody. We're out of here, and everybody have a great rest of the week. Everybody be sure and tune in to TNT Radio tomorrow at 5 p.m. To hear me guest host the Shannon Joy Show. And then again on Saturday at 9 a.m. Central Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Time for the premiere of the Brian McLean Show. Who the heck is that guy? Yeah, you may see someone familiar on that show. And of course, join us for Sunday Wire every Sunday, 9 a.m. Pacific, 11 Central, noon Eastern. And what is that? 5 p.m. UK time. We're out of here. This is Hesher and the Boiler Room, and we will see you next time for another live broadcast.
That's it. Go ahead and run. Run home and cry to mama.